This is like the...
Joyce is the big shot. She's got the bigger chair, I think.
No, really.
That's Joyce.
I think this is like the 15th year to be here. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Swami Swarupananda, Swami Ramanand, Swami from Tel Aviv.
And all the Chaitanyas. Yeah. You know, these people...
And TTCs and visitors.
Swami Swarupananda is, of course, your preceptor. And before, so many great beings have come through this place. And Swami Vasu... I always get his name wrong. What is it? Vishnu Devananda. He was sent here by Swami Sivananda, who said, "Go to the West. People are waiting." And here we are. Here we are. Still waiting. Still practicing meditation. I've been practicing meditation for 30 years. I still haven't gotten it right, but I'll keep practicing.
So our home place is Seattle, Washington. We bring you greetings from wet and sun and not a whole lot of snow right now. Tonight we're going to talk about the healing experience. You've heard about our backgrounds. And so from these places and decades of doing work, of putting science and spirituality together for healing at all levels, tonight we're going to show you some ways that that works and expand what's been new for us in looking at various kinds of trauma, how to release that so that these magnificent bodies of ours can do their job of healing. We'll tell you more. We've really enjoyed Dr. Amit Goswami's stories and work in quantum physics. And we started this talk when we put it together in Seattle, talking about connection. We are so connected at an atomic level, at a wave level, at the level of dark energy, at all levels. And in this place, we experience connection heart to heart. So this is what we bring to you tonight, and what we have always received and enjoyed when we've been here. So the connection, the starting point is where the arrow is up there, right here on Paradise Island, at this fabulous retreat center of 50 years. What did it take for you to get here? And where are we in the universe? This cover of the journal Science from a few years back shows areas of connection in the universe. It's not empty space, as it once was thought. There is connection throughout all the universe. And those are points of connection at a magnificent level, shown by some of the latest kinds of microscopes and things that travel out there to take pictures. If we look deep inside the body at the brain, these are the connections, over here, of neurons in your brain. Your whole body, you have 100 trillion cells. In your brain, you have 100 billion cells. Can you imagine how many that is? And those 100 billion cells, 100 billion cells in your brain,
Brilliant.
make 100 trillion connections. And even by the time you're 78, they're still connecting. Amazing. Let's see, my name is something like that. You take the next one.
Yeah, go ahead. So this is an actual picture from space. Doesn't it look a lot like the neurons in the brain? And there's a little measurement there. It says 31.25 parsecs. So that's the equivalent of 17,000 miles times 31.25, that little chunk of space out there. So we think of ourselves as so small, but if you've been listening to Amit Goswami, you know, this is all a oneness, and there's a realm beyond this realm of time and space. So even though this looks like an immense amount of space out there, there's more. That's what he's telling us, there's more. And that's where we're going as people who practice yoga. We're looking for the gaps. And the gaps aren't just way out there, they're actually with us. The yogis say, between the in-breath and the out-breath, there's a gap, and you can enter it. Between the blink of an eye, again, just as you close your eyes, there's that moment, that flash, when potentially you have the doorway to that place of no time, no space, the I, not me. I think we were going to sing. Shall we sing? We skipped that part.
These are brain cells. We're going back deep down inside, and Helen wants to lead you in the song.
So we already sang. We chanted tonight. And when the chanting starts here, I know everything's going to be all right, even if I can't remember one of the most important names here of this lineage. Because there's something about it. When we sing together, we come together, even when the leader starts and says Om, and you hear it around the room, we come together. So this song is a little different, but you may enjoy it. And if you want to stand up, you may, because we've been sitting for a while, and it's fine to renew your posture if you like. Don't have to, especially if you're Swami, you don't have to stand up. But if you want to, you may. So this is call and response, so that makes it easy. I'm going to sing a phrase, you're going to sing it back to me. Okay? And it'll get tricky at some point, but that's all right. You'll get it. We'll rehearse. Forget your perfect offering.
Forget your perfect offering.
Just ring the bell that you can ring.
Just ring the bell that you can ring.
There is a crack in everything.
There is a crack in everything.
That's how... Uh-oh. What happened there? That's how the light, that's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. I fooled you a little bit. There's a faster part there. So let's just try that faster part again. That's how the light, that's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. We could say there's a gap instead of there's a crack, if you like. We'll sing it that way this time, okay? So here we go. You're all rehearsed now. That's it, really. You're fabulous. Forget your perfect offering.
Forget your perfect offering.
Just ring the bell that you can ring.
Just ring the bell that you can ring.
There is a gap in everything.
There is a gap in everything.
That's how the light, that's how the light gets in.
That's how the light gets in.
Beautiful. The Sivananda choir. Yay.
So in practicing connection, which is important as the very first step of any kind of healing, of opening, of getting past the frozen states, meditation, and here's an image that brings that. We're going to lead you in a meditation a little bit later and do some work for everybody in the group. This connection connects all of us together. So if you can allow that for yourself, to feel the connection with the person behind you, in front of you, on either side of you, with all of this place. And most of you have done that already, but just be aware of it. Allow it to happen. So then there's internal connections. Cells with the electron microscope. So on the far left, here's pigment cells, here's connective tissue, collagen, underneath your skin. The whole sheath is covered by that. If you have an injury and you get a scar, the cells that make that have overdone their job a little bit. We can help clean them up. There's DNA over here on the right. There's so much deoxyribonucleic acid in your body, which carries the genetic information, that if you could take it out of one cell and wrap it around the world, it goes around a couple of times. You have genes in you that express good stuff. And there are times when there's genetic history that gives you some kind of illness. But there's been discovered a molecular complex that slides along the genes. It covers 3 base pairs. And that gene doesn't express. The color of your eyes, the color of your hair, your shape, your bones, all this stuff that's connected genetically. Each of the different things is controlled by 3 base pairs, that's all. And there is a way to move the expression. Sometimes things trigger expression of genetic conditions and diseases. And there's ways of dealing with that so that that condition or disease is no longer expressing. So there's healing in the depths of the genetic code. Recently it's been found that not only do we have 100 trillion cells in our body, we have at least 100 trillion bacteria, bugs, that live inside of us and on the outside of us. We are a host for trillions of bacteria. And without them, we could not digest our food. Do you have an apple today? Your body can't digest an apple. It's the bugs inside your gut that digest it. And there are ones now that are being discovered that are important in preventing cancer. We're going to show you another picture of some of this.
So
and
if you should feel that your ego is a little bit out of whack someday, you can just remind yourself that you are connected with 10 times more different animals inside you than you have cells. 10 times more.
Talk to them. Make them happy. Sugar makes the bad ones go, unfortunately. Oh, dear.
Feed them the right stuff, you'll be happy.
So here's a cancer-fighting agent that's been found in the bacteria, a certain specific one, Staphylococcus, a species of Staphylococcus that's on our skin. And this was discovered and published this March in 2018. So there's incredible work going on now because there's a great deal of interest and there's technology that can approach understanding how these species that live on and in us, what they are, how they work, and what they do. So make friends with all that bunch that's riding around with you. So where do we connect for healing? What are the levels of work? Here's our whole body. And then there's organ systems, all put together magnificently. If you take your skin off and ever have a chance to look at a book, or if you're a physician and you've looked at a cadaver and look inside, what is underneath the skin is amazing. In humans and all animals and the kitty cats that run around here, we are magnificently created, magnificently. So then there's an organ. That one shows the kidney. And then there's the tissue inside the organ. And then there's the cell. The cell is the site where stuff happens, where life force energy causes change. And so that's why in the work that I've been guided to, the cell level healing, that's where it comes. This is the target. And we don't have to know all the cell biology of the body to get there. But if you come to the class, you'll see not endless pictures of cells, but some. And so you have an idea of what they look like, and I'll show you some more tonight. Then there's molecules that make up the cells and atoms. And then we get into empty space. So at a certain level of us, we are incredibly spacious. But we're going to pull back to the cell in 200 different kinds of tissue in a human. So there's 200 different kinds of cells. They all divide at a different rate. They all look a little different. Their morphology is different. Their activity is different. They respond differently. And they're what keep you moving, alive, going. So here's a few pictures. And somebody mentioned to me, because I said, I don't want to bore people with a lot of pictures of cells. But they said they look like a mandala. So if you look at that and go, hey, one single cell, it's got a sacred aspect, the thing's like a mandala. So here's one single cell. Here's its nucleus, full of DNA that tells the cell what to do. This is an area where there's some garbage that's been collected and stored, some toxin. The cell has an ability to put it in a little capsule and keep it. Now, how big is this thing? You can't see a cell like that with a hand lens or a regular microscope. This was taken with an electron microscope. It's magnified 60, 70, 100,000 times. The electron microscope goes up to 1 million magnifications. It was invented in 1945. And from that invention, we began to understand what these 200 different kinds of cells in our bodies are really all about. Over here is a cell with other cells, and this is in the gut. This is from fish. My research was with fish, and primarily with fish exposed to pollutants, so we knew what happened, what made things go wrong for them. But the cells in a fish are exactly like they are in you. The cells in a gecko are just like in you. The cells in our local kitty cats are just like you. There are very few cells in any animal that are different. There are a few, but not many. We are at one with all living things at that level. This is in the gut, and you can see little bumps on the top. These are little microvilli that absorb nutrition. They stick up, so there's a lot of surface area. So the wonderful food you're eating here then becomes nutrition for you. Here's looking down inside of a cell at very high magnification. This is one single mitochondrion. Mitochondria produce 99.9% of the energy that keeps you going. It has the enzymes that produce virtually all the energy, crucial for your life. Here's other kinds of tubular things that have lipids in them and certain hormones. And over here, we see all these dots. These are intricate, winding, folding layers of membranes called, there's no simple name for them, endoplasmic reticulum. And that's where all the proteins, all the stuff that are the structure and the enzymes, all of that's inside of your cells produced there. So we can peek way down inside where stuff is happening. And we can touch it with healing energy so that it works.
Just while you're sitting here, 57 billion chemical reactions are taking place every second.
And you have 2 to 3 million brand new red blood cells produced every second of your life. Have you thought about that? Have you planned on that? The body is magnificent.
Fortunately, you don't have to keep track of all that. The body does it on its own. The body is performing miracle after miracle after miracle on your behalf, night and day.
Here's mitochondria in a very busy cell. They're long and skinny, and they're very busy producing energy for you. That's what they look like. Here's inside of a cell that has just cleaned up scar tissue. And here's a little vesicle, and you can see little bands of scar tissue of collagen that it's eaten. And it digests it, and then it takes the molecules and atoms and releases it out for the rest of the body to use again. You are also an incredible recycling system. Incredible. Now, if there's illness in your body, the cells are trying to capture whatever it is that's causing the illness. If it's toxins, as in this case, these are all wound up inside of vesicles in a cell, and the cell is grabbing onto them and captures them so that they can't damage the whole body. Sometimes they're captured and they're just held for decades in us. Other times they're released, slowly, one hopes, so they don't make you oversick. But here's the site, the place where your health is happening. So here's an electron microscope, and that's me a long time ago, sitting at one. This is a great big instrument, weighs over a ton, works on a great deal of voltage, and magnifies, as I told you, up to 1 million times. And then we put that and the healing energy together, and that's the work. My calling was not to start a school, as many have had. My calling was to train physicians, nurses, psychotherapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists, people who want to learn to do healing work from scratch also.
Musicians as well.
Oh, yes. How about that? So that's been the 34 years right now of this journey, which has been delightful. So we're going to give you 2 or 3 case histories so you can see how this stuff works with people.
So Ben lives in Florida, and I've worked with Ben 3 times. When we first worked together, he let me know what his diagnosis was. So this is what we do in a typical session when we work with people who have an illness of some kind. Ben had a lot of scarring or cirrhosis in his liver. So as you know, the liver's over here, and it's the biggest internal organ that we have in the body. So his spleen was enlarged. But primarily, as Ben presented to me, his main difficulty was that he was just freaked out. He was really, really afraid of death. And so we did 1 session, and then he booked another session with me. And when I called him for that session, he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you called." And I'm like, "Well, you booked the session, so that's why I'm calling." But he was in the ER. He had just been not admitted to the hospital, but was in the ER because he had bleeding. So he was hemorrhaging, and again, he was freaked out. And so the work with Ben, really, as it reached him. Now, I've not met him. I haven't met him face to face. We work with many people all around the world. We don't often get a chance to actually meet them. But the energy that went to him, quote unquote, from me or from the quantum, whatever, the quantum field. It's not a field. We know it's not an actual field, but the energy that reached him calmed him down. So there was a way for the 2 of us in speaking together to connect with one another, because we talk about this. This is the primary thing that Joyce and I start with in our practice is connection. Connection for us to source, to our source, connection to our client. And for Ben, that energy that came took away his anxiety. So we can only just rejoice. I can't tell you how that works. A lot of people will say, well, how does this healing thing work? And there's no theory that we have, other than that some way or other, as human beings, we can bless one another. That's the simplest way I have found to put it. So the blessing that you send to the one you love or the one you care about, or even the stranger that you meet on the street who needs something from you, some help, your blessing does find its mark. And this is what we hope people will take away when they take a course from us. We know not everybody wants to become a healer necessarily, but there may be just 1 or 2 people in your life that you can actually help them heal, or help in some way. Even silently sending your blessings does work.
results of connection. This is a woman who lives in England who got in touch with me, and we did one Skype session. She's on the schedule for a later one. But her history was amazing. Her father, unfortunately, actually abused her mother and hit her when she was in utero. And so her life started out being battered before she was born. And then as a child, she was abused. And she managed to survive her life, and she tried this and that and everything. She tried lots of things. And that's often where people come to us as they've tried things. It's not that the other methods, like psychotherapy, medicine sometimes have failed, but they're in a series. And then by the time they reach us, there's something that in that series we can do to help. So at age 70, which was 3 years before our session, one day she collapsed completely. She virtually almost died, and there was no reason for it. She wound up in a hospital. They were able to revive her, but she just had this episode, and she was not able to get outside and walk around. She wasn't able to do much, and so I worked with her at age 73. And this was, again, via Skype from Seattle to England. And what she wrote, what I did, the guidance for me, was shamanically to release the trauma in her life. And I can teach you how to do that. There's many ways to reach trauma and to release it. But with her, it was because she'd done a lot of thought work, and the brain had done as much as it could in therapy to release trauma. So my job was to reach in, get a hold of it, take it, send it to the light. And it actually worked. If you listen for guidance, you'd be surprised what works. It's not that we figure it out. We listen. And what she said, that the release she experienced, the freedom she experienced, and the health she experienced was beyond anything she could have thought of. So very grateful. In one session, this happened.
There's a popular notion now that we have to relive all of our traumas in order for them to be released. And because of the gift that Joyce has received, she literally can take it and remove it. So we don't have to sort through every single thing that happened to us. Some of it can just be taken away.
Here's yours.
Diane lived in Georgia, and I worked with her over a couple of years, actually. She was a victim of medical malpractice. A doctor in a hospital took her medications for himself. He was a drug addict, and he gave her warfarin. And as you know, warfarin is rat poison, essentially, that's used to thin the blood. So the dose that she got completely thinned out her blood. It blew out her smaller blood vessels. She lost toes and fingers, and almost died. So there was massive internal bleeding, and she at some point was well enough to get out of the hospital, but not well enough to walk, and she actually crawled out of the hospital. And she said, "Whatever I've got left, I'm going home with." So she experienced extreme pain. And when we would work together, you can put, I think, the other one, the work was to relieve the pain, to take the pain away, essentially, as best I could. But what would happen for Diane is she would have these bursts of creativity, and she would write during the sessions, and sometimes she would read to me what she had written, or she would send sometimes what she had written during the sessions to me. She had a very, very deeply personal spiritual life. She would wake up in pain at night and ask herself, who needs help? Who needs my prayers? And she would send blessings to people that she knew. She developed her own, through our work, she developed her own inner healing ground. And we teach this also in our class. We teach people to create their own inner realm where healing can take place. And last year, I was having a session with Diane, and she told me that her husband had passed away. And then she had a dream. She had a dream that her husband had come to her and said, "I'm not leaving without you." And 2 weeks later, Diane also passed. So she was free completely of that pain. A remarkable journey.
So sometimes healing is not cure. Sometimes it's assisting people to the other side with peace and comfort and safety. So here's a young man I worked with, Jeff. He'd had several suicide attempts, and he was diagnosed schizophrenic. His psychiatrist had him on a lot of meds. And he came to me because part of the suicide attempts and the stuff in the hospital, his intestinal tract had gotten badly damaged. He could not hold food down. He had severe diarrhea. Fix my guts is what he wanted. And so here's the target. Here's intestinal cells. Here's the division between them, how they're held together. So my work with him as we started, and he was in office, not somebody far away, was to focus on the replication and repair of the cells which are different in the stomach, his esophagus, in the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, and the colon. And it took several sessions, but it improved incredibly. So then he said, okay, and I want to show you a picture of what cells look like when they're damaged. You can feel this energetically, like there's dissolution, there's disruption, there's not smoothness in a body when cells are dying. And that's what was happening in his guts. That's what I could feel, and I knew the image of what it looked like. So we worked on his guts, and then he said, okay, my guts are doing fine, so fix my brain. I'm going, yeah, okay. But you got to promise me you're not going to dismiss your psychiatrist or go off of your meds, that we're working together as a team. So both Helen and I and other people in our practice see ourselves as team members with medical profession, psychologists, whomever. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And the guidance with that was he would get on the table, on the treatment table. I put my hands near his head, and I could feel the energy moving to his brain. It was almost as if the healing energy was rewiring his brain. And then slowly, he was no longer suicidal. He was able to do all kinds of things he couldn't do. He kept working with his psychiatrist, who was surprised and amazed, because this kind of healing wasn't supposed to be happening. And eventually the psychiatrist slowly took him off of one med after another until he was free of all meds. He went back to graduate school at the University of Washington, got a great job with Microsoft, and then took another job. Now he's in San Diego. I don't hear from him very much. But his life is doing fine, and he is not plagued by what he was plagued with before. So this was an exciting celebration. And the work with him was over about 4 years. Not every week, by any means. Every other week early on, and then once a month later on.
As a side note, his gift to Joyce was to make sure that she was invited to give a TED Talk.
Yeah, he was the route of the TED Talk invitation. Can you imagine that now? 363,000 views, goes up 1,000 a day. It's called Joyce Hawkes TEDx. Look it up. It's only 15 minutes long. Anyway, so everybody is different. How do we facilitate healing? So again, team members, and we're both trained. I have a a degree also in counseling psychology. I'm certified in the state of Washington. Helen's certified as a hypnotherapist. So there is some aspect of that, but it's not the main thing. Then there's the cell focus and the energy work. So it's body, mind, and spirit. One of the things we always inquire with a new client is, what is their spiritual leaning, background? What'd they grow up? What are they closest to? If they're an atheist and they like the earth, where on the earth do you like to sit by a tree, or you go to the water? So that we're working in the language, the modality of each person, never imposing a different one on them. Which has taken me to 10 years of study in Bali with Hindus and a master's degree with Jesuits. I'm not Catholic, at Seattle U. And lately, some years of class study with Jamal Rahman, who comes here to this place, who is a Muslim imam. And as a near-death experiencer, it was all one up there. It wasn't like over here is where one religion here, and there's another religion there, and another one there. But that sense of oneness and belonging and honoring each other's path is also part of this work.
There is a class of clients that we don't ask that question to. Dogs and cats. They don't seem to have a religion or spiritual upbringing. But I did experience a miracle tonight, because I worked with a dog for a couple of years. Her name was Faye. And Faye was given 6 months to live. She had bone cancer, sarcoma. So tonight, a couple of people came by before a satsang and said, "We are Faye's parents." They're right here. And so this for me was a miracle, because I never met Faye face to face. She's passed on now, but she was 13, so she had a good dog life. And it's a joy to work with animals. There's just nothing in the way. There's no belief system in the way. They don't really know they're having a session, except they actually do know they're having a session. And
they feel it.
And they can feel it, and they come around, and they give messages. I had to tell her mom and dad, her human mom and dad parents, one time that Faye really wanted more talk at home. And I was informed that they're, German heritage, and they don't talk much. It was a riot. So much fun. So thank you very much for being here. They come every year. I didn't know.
What a joy. What a gift.
A lovely gift. Thank you.
And Faye lived, 3 years after you started working with her?
I don't know. How long was it? 4 years. She lived for 4 years on a 6-month sentence. Not bad.
Not bad. So part of your body, the innate part of you, these mitochondria that produce all of the energy in your body. Tell them about the energy.
Well, what do you think? There's a question there. Mitochondria versus a lightning bolt. Which has more power? Which has more power?
It's a setup question.
It's a setup. Mitochondria can generate 0.2 volts. There are so many of them in your body. Your power supply in your body is equal to a lightning bolt. That's how much power you have right there. Even though you're falling asleep because it's so late, and and these people work so hard up here.
They do. Bless
Yeah.
your hearts. So your heart is amazing. And in the cells of your heart, the cardiac muscle cells, are 41% mitochondria. They're almost half their mass of mitochondria to keep those muscle fibers working and your heart pumping your entire life. Are you amazing?
Just don't get a big head.
What prevents healing? Here are the things: stress, fear, beliefs, sometimes negative stuff, anger, trauma, physical blocks, karmic contracts. Oh dear.
Those are the worst.
You go for this.
just right here in front of this stage a few years back. We had just given our talk, and a student in the TCC came to us, and she was vibrating with fear and pain. And she said to us, "I can't be sick. I have to finish this course." She was in so much pain she couldn't sit. And there's a lot of sitting and a lot of yoga. And she was in so much fear, but she kept saying over and over, "I can't be sick, I can't be sick, I can't be sick." And clearly she was sick. So we're standing there and I'm thinking, well, you can't just tell somebody, look, you just told us you were sick, so let's allow, relax, let go. So we just did, quote unquote, our thing. Joyce and I spoke to her, but while we were speaking, we were also working, because clearly she was asking for help. So what is the work? Again, it's hard to describe, but the energy went to her, and somehow, when we would see her on the path after that, she was smiling, she was happy, she would say, "Hi, everything is fine, everything is great." But there's some part of us that wants to deny what is. So how can we allow, let go, and turn and look at what's happening in the body and happening in the mind and say, wow, I see something going on here. I'm observing it, I'm witnessing it, and I need help. So this allowing and letting go and letting someone help you, or taking the help of your spiritual practice, your spiritual preceptors, your teachers, and so forth, so important, instead of trying to push it away. I can't be, I can't be, I can't be.
And what's known now about stress is the biochemistry it produces. Molecules are called catecholamines. Takes 72 hours to be metabolized. That's a long time. And they kill neurons, brain cells. They suppress your immune system, so you get sick. Your immune system can't work right. And they block absorption of the nutrients that you need. So our busy lives out there in the other world are very stressful. So developing a practice where you can move into that place of peace.
Fortunately, you're in the right place.
You're in the right place. So, help on the way.
The autonomic nervous system has two sides. It's kind of a bicameral thing. So when we are stressed, when we are threatened and so forth, the side that comes out is called the sympathetic nervous system, and it basically biases the body to run away, to fight, or to freeze. And that's important for survival. So this is what we have to keep us safe as physical beings out in the dangerous world. The other side, the effects on the body. Yes, Joyce just mentioned them, so we can move on. I think one of the things she didn't mention is your higher brain function goes offline. You don't need to think your way out of a tough situation. You just need to run or fight, right, or freeze, and hope that they don't find you. So it's helpful because it helps us as physical beings to survive. When it's not helpful is when it's chronic. So we already know that our society out there is chronically stressed. And that's why we are here. This is like an emergency ward. This is a spiritual emergency ward, this place right here. It has the cure for this chronic stress. And when we get it right, the parasympathetic side of the nervous system comes online. You could call this rest and digest, or rest and repair. And you actually have the tool right now with you for letting go of stress and turning on the parasympathetic nervous system. It's your breath. Breathe into a count of 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do that again. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guarantee you that if you're feeling stressed and you switch to that type of breathing, you will turn on the parasympathetic nervous system and you will feel yourself, even with a few rounds, starting to relax. The mind and the body will relax. That's how you turn that part on. And it works for your electronics too.
So with trauma, we know that there's many aspects: physical, mental, emotional. And unresolved trauma freezes part of the body. I had to have a knee replacement from an accident I had decades ago, and I was afraid I was going to drop my granddaughter, so I had a full knee replacement. The only surgery I've ever had to have. This thing is working just great. I'm happy with it. But after surgery, I was up and walking around and doing this stuff, but I couldn't get energy down to my foot. So I did some work myself, it's interesting, of removing the trauma. I didn't feel any pain during the surgery, but I knew there was sawing and chipping and new pieces of titanium and plastic put in there. And so once I could get energy moving all the way down, that healed so fast, and it's working so well, that I'm very, very grateful. So we've worked with Brent Baum and both of us, and have learned some new things about how to release the frozen state the body goes into when there is trauma. Because people can hold that their entire lives. And getting that out, then the body gets busy and does its own thing. So how do we thaw frozen states? First of all, we ask for guidance. Each person is different. There's no one way to do it. And I'm watching time. So the guidance then is we're touched. We become an instrument of healing. And as an individual taking in healing, we can receive it from the source, however you experience that. And people experience it differently. How to thaw mental and emotional issues. Therapy is one. Talking. Shamanic practices do it. There are all kinds of ways, and we have some that we'll be teaching in the class also that help release that frozen state. Then, how do you thaw physical issues? Pain, the immune system, if it's shut down. For many people it is because of a variety of things. Genetic issues, as we talked earlier about opening genes to express that actually produce health for you. And gently shutting down the ones that are expressing a disease, like an autoimmune disease. And then unknown. There are times when the work is guided and it's a feeling of energy. And yeah, we know there's cells there and we know there's trauma that's been released, but we don't know the full story. But the results are exceptional. So there's a place of mystery with this that the scientist part of me would love to have written out and published in a paper, but I must admit there is a mystery to it that I simply appreciate. So how do we thaw spiritual blockages? Moses did. And Passover's coming. So our journey into freedom, and it was one of the things that Swami Swarupananda, you talked, one of the Seders I was here, about, it still touches me, about how universal it is in the experience of coming into freedom spiritually. Never forgotten it. So how do we release the resources of the body? Was going to do some Q&A, but we don't have time right now. So took this morning. It was so beautiful out there. We'd like to briefly lead you in a short healing meditation, if you're okay with that.
It's going to have to be like 30 seconds.
I know. Maybe a minute.
So what Joyce and I are going to be doing is sending healing energy around the room. And if you don't want it, just go like this. We'll pass you by. So just allow yourself to be at ease. Close your eyes. When I was a kid, I read in the Bible, pray without ceasing. It wasn't until I was 40 and began to practice yoga that I heard that there is a natural mantra going on in the body all the time. The breath is saying, Soham. Soham. I am. I am. I am. This is the prayer, the unceasing prayer that goes on. Just allow it. Soham or Hamsa, whichever suits you. And with each out-breath, let go, allow. And within each inspiration, draw in what you need. Know that it is there for you. Endless rounds of ceaseless prayer, day and night. To support your life, your unfoldment, your enlightenment. And thank you.
Okay, coming back. Here's our contact information. And there's the major healer of the office. His name is Rama.
It's actually, his full name is Ramahari. And it's not an insult because this is the most lordly and lovely animal on the planet.
We start class tomorrow at 11:30 at the Anadurga Temple. And class goes then from noon to 3, and then the next 4 days, 8 to 10 in the morning and noon to 3. So 25 contact hours of teaching. We'll see you there.